Great job today, band. I hope you guys at home like that new song, Graves to Gardens, like I did. I was impacted by it before I even heard it, actually. I read the title, and I thought, man, that tells a story that is encouraging, gives me something to chew on, going from the graves to the gardens. So love coming into the setting after our worship band. They're just so awesome, so it makes it easy. So welcome. Good morning. We're glad you're here. We hope that this is just going to bless you. Today, I am going to be wrapping up our series on the book of Romans. And so we've been doing this for about 8 weeks now. For those of you who attended Merge, before the apocalypse, we actually met in a building together, and we kicked it off there. And so I was actually the one who kicked off our series on Romans, and we did a little talk about the love of God. I used a movie clip from a movie called A Quiet Place. And so in keeping with that today, I'm going to be using movie clips for each of my points. And so, I like to stay consistent, a little symmetry here, people. So other than myself, we did have Jack, Mike and Bob, Chris and Angela have all spoken on Romans. So we really feel like you've gotten a good taste of what the book is about, and also just different people's giftings and their perspectives and the way that they present it. So today I'll be wrapping that up. So before we do that, before I go into the idea, today I do have kind of one main idea that I think sums up all of Romans, and then I have 3 supporting points that I think go with it, and that's kind of the structure or the framework I'll be working with today. I wanted to say this, I have a friend who during this last month or two feels like this has been a beautification process for her. Right, you're going through a little bit of a beautification. And now I know some of you at home are going, I'm glad you can't see through the camera because there's nothing beautiful here. I get it. You're looking at a quarantine cut right here, right? We pulled out the clippers, we put on a guard, and we literally let each of my kids take a stripe down. So I get it. I don't think that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about a beautification, the deep things, the internal things, our heart, our spirit, our soul. And there's a transformation that we think that God wants to do. And I think that's what she's talking about. And probably no better place in the Bible do you see the idea than in Romans that talks about transformation. And it sort of makes us think and wants us to see a picture of a cocoon, right? In Romans 12, we see a cocoon. And so I feel like maybe we're in a cocoon time where there's we're wrapped up in something, and it's a little bit painful. There's change happening. But I think at the end, the result is going to be something beautiful. And we're going to be able to fly places that before we couldn't even walk to with all our effort. And so this beautification process, I just say, give yourself to it, okay? So the main idea, what I think maybe sums up the whole book of Romans, is that God is for you. Let's look in the ESV version of Romans, chapter 8, verse 31, real quick. I think this is going to sum up the whole book and God's heart for us wrapping up this series. It says this: what then shall we say to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? What an incredible truth. If we could, like the cocoon, wrap ourselves in that and just let ourselves be affected by that God is for us, who could be against us? I think that's going to take us places, okay? So 3 ideas, 3 supporting points of that. How is he for us? What does this mean, right? So the first idea that I think we're supposed to think about and wrap ourselves up in and process and allow God to speak to our hearts is he is for us by giving us a gift of righteousness. Let me read to you Romans 6, verses 17 and 18, and then we'll talk about those for just a minute. Verse 17, but thanks be to God that you were once slaves of sin, but have become obedient from the heart to the standard of teaching to which you were committed. And having been set free from sin, have become slaves of righteousness. So we were slaves of sin, and now we have become, because of what Jesus did for us, because he went to the cross for us, because God sent his only son for us, we have become slaves of righteousness. And so as I was kind of downloading that, processing it, going, oh man, what does this Bible verse mean? I thought about it. We're not slaves of the devil first and then later slaves of God. No, we were slaves of sin. And when I thought about that, I thought about those are all the things that are contrary to the will of God. Those are all the things that we're trying to strive. And if we go down this route, it's like God's saying that righteousness comes through faith in Jesus Christ and what he did for us. And so the opposite is what we used to be slaves of, which says, you better keep going because you need to earn this. You need to prove it, and you need to work, and it will never be done. We were slaves of one, and now we're slaves of righteousness. And I thought about this, the idea of slaves of righteousness. I thought, man, what is a slave? And I thought there's an ownership factor there. It kind of means that something is owned, and righteousness means I'm in right standing with God. And I thought, man, I wonder what my life would look like if I really believed that I was owned by being in right standing with God. That thing owned me. And I go, man, what was that? So one of the reasons I was drawn to this verse, I'll give you, it was a little bit strange. Tuesday of this week, I woke up with a name in my mind. It wasn't like I was having a dream, but I woke up and I had a name in my mind, and I go, oh man, I know that name. The name that was in my mind was Dred Scott. And I was like, man, I recognize this name. But here's the thing. Even though I knew the name, I knew, my brain couldn't quite put it together. I was just waking up, and to be honest, I'm a pretty big movie buff, as we're kind of encountering here. I immediately confused it with the Dread Pirate Roberts from The Princess Bride. Like, I was like, oh, Dread Pirate Roberts. I thought that's what it was. So I was like, that doesn't sound right. And why is this name in my mind? And so I got up and I did what you do, and you looked it up, and I said, man, who is this Dred Scott? Very famous legal case having to do with slavery. And so Dred Scott in the 1800s, he filed a lawsuit. Like, for a while he had lived in Illinois that had some freedoms going on. And so legally he tried to sue, saying, I should be able to be a free man. And he lost his case, the Dred Scott case. It's one that sets precedent, like he didn't win. And so I thought about that. But also, as I was looking it up, it turns out that in 1857, Dred Scott was manumitted. Totally never even heard of that word before, had to look it up. But a manumission was an agreement that a slave owner could come with a slave and set them free. And that's kind of, when I woke up and I did all this research, it drew me to this idea of, man, we were slaves of sin, and if we tried to right ourselves, and if we legally tried to present a case before God that we deserve to get into heaven based on our merits, ultimately we lose. But I do feel like God's saying, but I have a manumission, right? I have an agreement that if you'll join me on how I, who hold the ownership rights of things, if you'll join me, then you're in. I want you in my family real bad. So this is kind of, again, how I think. I think in terms of movies and clips and quotes. And the movie I thought that went along with this idea of, am I a slave of righteousness, was the newest Marvel movie. It's called Endgame. And so Marvel put together this long series of movies, like 20-something movies, that culminated in the Endgame. And in the Endgame, somebody was going to have to sacrifice their life to save others. Turns out in the movie, spoiler alert, turn it off, but I'm giving it now, it was Tony Stark. It was Iron Man. He gives his life. And so I go, okay, you can see a picture of Jesus and what he did, but you know what was really making me think about this was, why did Tony Stark, why did he even agree to start with this process? And it all had to do with Peter Parker. It all had to do with the dual ego, the identity of Spider-Man. It was Peter Parker. You see, there was something in Tony Stark's heart that says, I love him. Because Tony Stark had a family now, and he didn't want to risk what he had, but he said, there's somebody worth risking it for that's not even my biological family, and it was Peter Parker. And in the end, you see that Iron Man, Tony Stark, he gives his life, and when I think about it, he gave it for really a single person, for Peter Parker, because he loved him. And I think in this story, I think we're Peter Parker. I think that that we got to look at it as somebody literally gave their life for us. And if you would accept that, you become a slave of righteousness. You go, it now owns me that I'm in right standing with you. You see, after Iron Man gives his life for Peter Parker, Tony Stark dies, he can now no longer doubt that Tony Stark is into him. Nothing that Peter Parker could ever do again would make him question, am I in right standing with him? Because he gave it all. Because he was worth the ultimate cost. And so forever now, Peter Parker's in right standing. I think that's our story. That when your heart really hears, God, you gave it all, you go, that now owns my heart. I'm still going to mess up. I'm still going to do things, but I'm in right standing, and there's nothing I can do about that. I'm a slave of righteousness now. And that's one of the proofs that God is for you, is you're a slave of righteousness. One more little idea and another movie clip. I said, so what do you do with this? Right? I'm telling you that Jesus gave his life for you, and you got to say, yeah, and then you got to believe that, and then it will own your heart. And the movie, I actually thought of a song from the Hunger Games. So Katniss Everdeen is the main character. Jennifer Lawrence plays her. She actually sings a song there that there's just the one line, whenever I hear it, makes me think about God, makes me think about the Bible. And it's called The Hanging Tree. She says, are you coming to the tree? Yeah, I know, you were blessed by that. You know what? It was free today. You don't have to put anything extra in the virtual offering basket. I just wanted to give you that. But here's what she's saying. Are you going to come to the hanging tree? And the reason it makes me think about the Bible is because there's a scripture that says, cursed is he who hangs on a tree. And so we see a picture of Jesus hanging on a tree. And when you start to go, oh my gosh, I think I am Peter Parker, you've got to decide, are you going to come to the tree? Would you like to take your works, your righteousness as filthy rag? Would you like to take it and give it to him, because he would take your curse, and instead he would give you righteousness? You've got to decide, would you go there? One last thing before I go on to my second subpoint. I was praying about what I was supposed to speak about today, and a verse came to my mind, and it's a psalm that somebody wrote. It says this: better is a day in your courts than thousands elsewhere. And it was a song for a while. I know we sang it at the church I was part of. Better is one day in your courts, right? Anyway, when I was praying about it and when I heard that, I felt like God was sharing his heart for me. And it was kind of hard to actually process, because God, I think, thinks way different than us. He's holy. He's from a different place. His thoughts are higher. His ways are deeper. His love is it's different than anything we come across. And this is what I thought he was saying. I thought he was turning those verses and saying it about us. I thought he was saying, guys, I would rather spend one day with you in your worst possible mess than thousands of what you consider to be a good day, but I don't get to spend them with you. We think, oh man, I got to clean up. He doesn't want to hang out with me. Like sometimes I'm sitting at home and going, I don't even want to hang out with me. And you start to go, man, God doesn't want to hang out with me. He's absolutely into you. He did this work thousands of years ago, and he's absolutely dying to spend, he wants to spend this time with you, and he's going, man, better is one day that I get to spend with you. Your worst possible look, the worst possible feeling, your worst possible sin, he's in. And he's like, I'd rather do that than spend thousands of days where you think you're doing great and you're being perfect, but we're not actually spending them together. Again, proof that you're in right standing. He wants you to be together all the time. So my second, I guess, sub-point to just try to lay it on you, to cocoon you with the thought that God is for you, is that he didn't just stop at the cross. That's crazy, because that was such a monumental, history literally changed about that moment. Everybody talks about it. I don't care if you're a Christian, everybody talks about this historical moment, and he didn't stop there, but I will tell you that we see in Romans, he graciously helps us with all things. I'm talking about he even wants to help us practically. He cares about what we care about. He's paying attention to the number of hairs we have in our head, and he knows what's going on. He knows the things we are even praying to him before we say it. He's paying attention, and he cares, and he wants to help. He wants to be an ever-present help in times of trouble. Let me give you another verse here, just supporting here. Chapter 8, verse 32 of Romans. Listen to this. He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also with him graciously give us all things? He wants to help us even more, right? So that's just crazy. He's like, okay, he didn't just spare his son, didn't just cross. Let's do some more. I'm into you. And I struggle with this at times, quite frankly. My movie, I guess, is going to be, for this point, is going to be The Call of the Wild. Don't know if you guys have seen it. Has to do with, it's a book that was written, kind of a classic. It's a recent movie, though, Harrison Ford. The story really revolves around a dog up front. And this dog sort of has a story that's maybe similar to all of us, right? It's like he's sort of living what you might consider a cushy dog life. And then something hits, and then all this trouble starts. And this cocoon for the dog starts, and he's got to figure out, who am I now? What am I supposed to do with life? Everything looks different now. And so you see the process of this dog engaging, and then he finds a man, Harrison Ford, and he tries to help him go through the same process. And so it's been interesting, and I bring it up because, during this quarantine, we literally had a dog just show up at our door, just clawing at our door one night, 9 o'clock at night, and we open it, and he's trying to get in, and I'm like, are you kidding me? I don't even know what to do now. Like, we need a dog. Like, who needs a dog at this time, right? Like a puppy. Things like, it's a Rottweiler, it's 5 months old, and I'm going, oh man, I tried to call around, everything is closed, right? The people who you could turn in a stray to, they're like, we might be back in a month. I'm like, okay, all right, so Buck, the dog from Call of the Wild, just showed up at our house. Well, I am happy to publicly announce that we are deciding to keep this dog. We've been going through the process, and we're going to keep him. So there you have it. I know some people have been asking me about the follow-up of Buck Martin Shuh, so he'll be a celebrity, I'm sure. But what I wanted to talk about, even God helping us, clearly, like, we didn't need extra things to do. Like, my wife and I are working. We've got 4 kids at home. You're homeschooling. And now we're going to train a Rottweiler. Oh, that makes sense, but I think God is like, hey, I'll help you with that. But here's what I wanted to talk about. My wife and I, we get along really well, almost all the time. But we had a tiff last week, kind of had a little bit of a spat. It's not super typical for us, but I don't know if anybody else is feeling a little bit of pressure by being trapped in a space with the people they love, and maybe things can rile up a little bit. I don't know about you guys, but there are just so many memes floating around these days to read. And I saw one the other day. It was a woman that lived kind of on the second story. She had put a banner out her window, a big banner that said, "Husband for sale." And I was like, that is awesome, although I'm pretty sure nobody's buying currently. Like, nobody's going to want to purchase another human being to be in their house. Like, it's just someone else to fight with. So anyway, it's, I know other people are feeling a little bit of the strain. And so it really had to do with this dog, right? It had to do with Buck. And so we've got all this new added responsibility. And I felt like I was doing this part, and she felt like she was doing this part. And we both were doing well, but then it kind of came to a little bit of a head where I thought she was supposed to do a part, and she thought I was supposed to do the part, and we had a little bit of a tiff. Just wanted to admit that, and I hope it frees some of you up to work through some of your stuff, because I will tell you that because our marriage is submitted to God, we just turned to Him and we're able to laugh about it, and He really actually helped us grow as a couple out of that. I'm not saying that you're supposed to fight with people to get stronger, but I'm saying that when these things happen, you can turn to God and He'll actually turn them into good practically, right? So He has helped us with the practical side of our relationship. And so one last thought on this subpoint is that I was thinking about the fact that I think because the cross was such a big deal, once you've been in church for a little while, you think, well, He did the work. I should probably be perfect by now. I shouldn't have to come to God with these things. And that made me think about Peter. When Jesus' life was winding down and Jesus came to him and said, hey, I want to wash your feet. He's like, no, you're not going to wash my feet. And he's like, yeah, I am. And then he goes, all right, well, here's the thing. I want you to wash all of me then, right? A little sassy, right? And Jesus is like, here's the thing. If I've already washed your whole body, I don't have to. I only have the feet left. And I thought about that, and it even reminded me of Moses and the burning bush, and when he was walking up, where when we're coming to God, it's like there's a part of our feet that's touching the earth, and he said, take off your sandals because you're entering a holy space. And I feel like God is wanting us to know he's already done the body of work, but when it comes to your feet, when it comes to the little things that you're still working on, that you care about, he even wants to wash your feet. He even wants to give you more. He wants to graciously help you. He who did not withhold his own son, the relationship started with a big commitment on his end. He's not going to stop there. He's also going to wash your feet. And I just feel like you can boldly approach the throne of grace. You are in right standing. He's going to help you even more. The last sub-point that I thought kind of supported the idea that God is absolutely for us. And if he's for you, who could be against you? Who are you outweighing God's for you, his pro? Are you giving something else the bigger weight in your life and in your mind? How are you weighing these things out, right? He is for you. What could possibly be against you? You just got to keep going to him, like we heard this morning. You got to keep coming, that quiet time. Hey, God, what are we doing here? Here's the third point. He gives you gifts after that initial gift. He gives you gifts that give you purpose. That is just proof that he thinks you're important. Let's look at chapter 12, verses 5 and 6. So we, though many, are one body in Christ, and individually members one of another. Having gifts that differ according to the grace given to us, let us use them. We've been given gifts, and they differ. How incredible is this, that the truth that God's saying, I love you and I am for you, that he has given you purpose. He says, man, I'm hand wrapping a gift for you. He goes on in this chapter to list some of those gifts, but he wants you to know that you are gifted because you're a part of a puzzle. You're a part of a body. You have a role. You are significant and you are important. You are gifted, and he gave it to you, and there's nothing you can do about it. You should try to look and go, man, you gave me a gift, and it was different than other people. I think sometimes, here's the thing I want to talk about just real quick. I do fully believe that there's an unseen world, that there is a spirit realm all around us, and I do believe that there are spirits in there. And we're talking about God today. I believe he's in this unseen realm. And I believe from him, through him, and to him are all things. This is how creation happened, right? So we've got these beings, and I'm presenting to you that God is absolutely for you. But I will tell you that in the unseen realm, there are enemies of God as well. And because God is for you and he has enemies, I am promising you that there are in the unseen realm spiritual beings that are against you. And they will do whatever they can to take these gifts that God has given you and turn them into something negative. Call them, they are the enemy of you. Let me point to a couple things that I think when God says, I'm giving gifts of differing things to different people, let me tell you two things that I've seen that are great lies that we start to buy into. The first one is when you realize your gift, what the enemy would have you do is look at other people and you start to notice that you don't have their gift. And instead of feeling like you're valuable because God gave you a gift and you're part of the puzzle and you're significant in the context of a community and of a Christian family, instead of seeing that, you start seeing what you're not and you say, I'm therefore not valuable. It's a complete lie and you need to abolish it. I guarantee you will never have every gift, and it's okay. God has given you gifts. They will differ from other people, and you need to not focus on that. I'm not saying that you don't have work to do in your life, that God's not trying to grow. Of course he is. But I'm saying that you will never have every gift. You heard me sing. Do you want me in the band? I don't think so, right? I'm okay with that. I'm completely blessed by them singing to me. And then I just try to offer who I am to them. Right? You've got to look at, say, this is God. This isn't even me. This is God. He's given me this gift, and you give it to them. So that's one lie, is you look at something you're not, and you say, therefore, I am not. God must not love me. He gave them. I didn't get it. They got it. They're better at this than me. The second thing that I've seen is sometimes I think when we see somebody that's not gifted, or they're maybe not as far along in something as us, we look at them and we go, oh man, they're really deficient. Oh man, I want nothing to do with them. They don't know anything about this. And I think when we do that, we devalue all gifts. Instead, when we see somebody that's not as far along, you can say, okay, they're not as far along, but your heart will be, let me use my gifts for them. Let me play my part in the puzzle. Let me have my purpose. This is what God gave you as a purpose. And when you see other people that aren't you, it's like God going, here you go. This is your role. This is why I created you. Go, be significant, help others. But if you're trying to do it independently, if you're just going, man, you're going to find yourself sad at the end of the day because you're not connected with the people God has made you part of a community with, right? So that's a second lie. Yeah. Don't just look at people who don't have what you have and say, man, they're dumb, I want nothing to do with them. No, they have something, they do have a gift that God wants to use to bless you. Right? You cannot say to them, you have no need of them. You cannot say that because that's not how God works, okay? My movie for this, I don't know if any of you have seen the movie Taken. If you haven't, you need to go now. Like, you can come back to this, we'll record it, we'll put it on there, okay? But Taken, the idea is Liam Neeson is our protagonist. And I did hear somebody say he's not really good at what he says because they keep making more movies and everyone around him keeps getting taken. Like, can he prevent it somehow? But nevertheless, there's kind of a classic scene. I mean, you see it a lot, and it's in the first Taken movie where Liam Neeson, his daughter, is kidnapped, right? They're human trafficking, and he gets the phone, and the kidnapper, he's in some other country, and Liam Neeson gets on the phone, and he tells the kidnapper, I wrote this down, I won't do I can't do his voice yet. It will sound probably, all my impressions sound like Mexican Ronald Reagan. So I will just read the lines, but imagine Liam Neeson speaking this to you in fear. He says, I don't know what you want. If you're looking for ransom, I can tell you I don't have money. But what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I have acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you. I will not, if you let my daughter go, that will be the end of it. I will not look for you. I will not pursue you. But if you don't, I will look for you. I will find you, and I will kill you. And you're just like, I don't know how he's going to do it, but you're just like, oh, I'm engaged, right? Because it's unjust, and it's his family, it's someone he loves. And so I thought I would bring this to you because this is the famous line, and I thought, he says, I have a very particular set of skills. And I feel like that's right out of Romans, God saying to you, you do have a very particular set of skills. You do have purpose. You do, and I think even specifically, I think God has placed you into your family. He has placed you into your church and your neighborhood and your work, and those people that you are around have been taken hostage. And God has given you gifts to put into that community so that you can help free them, so that you can fight the tormentors around them and help them to be free, just like Liam Neeson. And so I'm going to welcome the band back up. I just kind of want to wrap up with just a conclusion here that I want to reiterate that I absolutely believe that God is for you. I absolutely believe that He committed all out thousands of years ago at the cross. I think about John 3:16, that God so loved us, that God so loved the world, that God so loved the inhabitants of the world, that He gave His only Son, that whoever believes on Him should not perish but have everlasting life. And because of what Jesus did, He showed us that He was for us by giving us righteousness, by when we believe in Jesus, right standing with God. And I believe that He helps us with more things than that. And I believe that he knows that we need to know that we're meaningful, that we're not just puppets, but that we can do things that impact and influence and help. And so He gives us gifts, and He says, I want you to use these gifts. I want you to bless each other with these. And it's just proof that He is for us. He is for us. He is for us. I hope that you wrap yourself up in that like a cocoon and you just think about it. and throughout your week, you play Graves to Gardens and you go, God is for me. I am owned by right standing with God. I don't know, I think if you're at home now and you go, man, I don't actually know if I'm right standing, I would encourage you to pray. If it were me praying, I would just say, Lord, this is probably not the best prayer, but Lord, I believe I'm like Peter Parker and you're Tony Stark. I believe that the reason you did this was for me. I believe you are for me. And I believe in your Son, and I want to be in right standing, and I thank you that you proved you were for me by creating a way for me to be owned by right standing with you. Thank you, Lord. And for the rest of you, know that you have purpose. Know that you are gifted. Know that you might have bought into the lie that you are insignificant, that you don't have gifts of other people. And I want to tell you, we're going to end with a song. We're going to close out this series with a song. And I think that God wants to tear every lie that is in your life down. Every wall that you put up between you and other people that doesn't belong there, I think he wants to kick it down. And so I've asked the band to just wrap up this series with a song called Reckless Love. And I want you right at home, or maybe you want to sing along. Maybe you just need to go, God, I want to believe this. Help me. I just want you to engage on a personally connected way with God during this last song. And maybe they just got to minister to you. Maybe you got to get up and shout it. God, I believe in you. I believe there's no lie you're not here to tear down. I want your help. I want the extra help he's talking about. Please come. I encourage you to just engage with this song wherever you're at. God bless you. Can't wait to see you again.
Spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so good. I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so good.